Ambassador Han Jiwoo stood motionless before the large holographic display. The 12 alien ships seemed to glow against the darkness of space. Their strange crystalline shapes reflected starlight in ways that human vessels never did. Jiwoo had faced many challenges in her diplomatic career, but nothing like this. They appeared 3 days ago, Director Kim Do-hyun said, his voice breaking the silence. No warnings, no communication attempts until yesterday. Jiwoo nodded, her expression revealing nothing of her inner thoughts. The Security Council chamber was unusually quiet. The 15 most powerful people in human space watched her, waiting for a reaction. And what did they say when they finally contacted us, she asked. Only that they are called the Rakari and wish to discuss territory boundaries, Counselor Park Tae-ho replied. Their message was short. Some believe it was intentionally so. Do-hyun handed her a datapad. The screen showed limited information about the alien species. Jiwoo read through it quickly, her frown deepening with each swipe of her finger. This isn't much to go on, she said. Warrior culture. Hierarchical society. Expansionist tendencies. Physically larger and stronger than humans. No known diplomatic relations with other species. She looked up. And you want me to negotiate peace? You've successfully handled 3 major conflicts that everyone thought would end in war, Tae-ho said. The Centauri Miners' Rebellion. The Mars Independence Crisis. Even the Earth-Europa trade dispute. Those were human problems, Jiwoo pointed out. We understood each other, even when we disagreed. That's exactly why we need you, Do-hyun said, stepping closer. You understand people. You see what they really want, not just what they say they want. Jiwoo placed the datapad on the table. The room waited for her decision. I'll need our best cultural analysts. And linguists. And military advisors who won't push for a fight at the first sign of trouble. Tae-ho nodded. You'll have everything you need. The diplomatic vessel Harmony is being prepared as we speak. 2 days later, Jiwoo walked through the Harmony's corridors. The ship was the pride of Earth's fleet, designed not for fighting but for showing the best of humanity. Its large meeting rooms, art galleries, and observation decks were meant to impress and welcome visitors. Today, it felt like they were preparing for a funeral rather than a diplomatic mission. In the main conference room, Jiwoo found her hastily assembled team working frantically. Screens around the room displayed information about the Rakari ships, their positions, and possible weapons systems. Ambassador Lee Sun-woo greeted her with a small bow. He had been her assistant for 5 years, and she trusted his judgment more than most of the experts. The linguistics team believes they've improved our translation systems based on the limited communications so far. That's something, Jiwoo said. What about their intentions? Any clarity there? Sun-woo's expression darkened. He led her to a quieter corner of the room and lowered his voice. The intelligence team intercepted some transmissions between their ships. The translations are rough, but... He paused. It appears they may have already decided on military action. The diplomatic meeting might be just for show. Jiwoo took a deep breath. She had suspected as much. Species that lived by conquest rarely changed their ways after their first success. Then we'll need to change their minds, she said simply. As the Harmony made final preparations to depart, Jiwoo found herself alone on the observation deck. Through the large windows, she could see Earth below, beautiful and blue. Further out, barely visible, were the defense platforms that had kept humanity safe from smaller threats. They would be useless against the Rakari fleet if negotiations failed. Somewhere in the darkness of space waited an alien species that saw humans as either obstacles or prey. They had likely studied Earth's defenses and found them wanting. They had likely planned for war even while offering to talk peace. But they hadn't met Han Jiwoo yet. And that might just make all the difference. The Harmony's engines hummed to life. Their journey to the neutral meeting point would take 3 days. 3 days to prepare for the most important diplomatic mission in human history. 3 days to find a way to convince warriors that peace could be more profitable than war. Jaiwo watched as Earth grew smaller behind them. The fate of her world now rested on her ability to understand creatures humanity had never encountered before. It was an impossible task. But then, the impossible was her specialty. The neutral station hung in space between human and Ricari territories. Its ring structure was built from materials contributed by 12 different species over 3 decades. Most visitors paused to admire its beauty. Ambassador Han Jaiwu was not most visitors. Her eyes were fixed on the 6 Ricari entering the grand meeting hall. They moved with controlled power, like predators who didn't need to hurry because prey could never escape them. Remember, Sunwoo whispered beside her, their body language follows different rules. What looks like aggression might be curiosity. Jaiwo nodded slightly. 3 days of travel had given her team time to prepare, but much about the Ricari remained unknown. The aliens were even more impressive up close. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with bodies covered in segmented exoskeletons that shimmered with blues and greens. Their 4 eyes, positioned to see in all directions, constantly scanned the room. The tallest Ricari, wearing armor decorated with what appeared to be battle marks, approached Jaiwo directly. The translator in her ear identified him as Supreme Commander Vokar, leader of the delegation. Vokar looked down at Jaiwo. His upper eyes blinked in what the human team believed was surprise. The human negotiator is smaller than expected, he said. His voice came through the translator as deep and slightly mechanical. Jaiwu smiled, refusing to be intimidated. Size isn't everything, Commander, she replied. As I'm sure your tactical experts have told you. The Ricari's lower eyes narrowed, a sign of either amusement or anger. The briefing files weren't clear which. We shall see, Vokar said. The formal negotiations began an hour later. The Ricari sat across from the human delegation at a large oval table. Behind Vokar stood 4 guards with weapons that, while technically permitted by the station's rules, were clearly positioned for quick use. As the Ricari listed their demands, Jaiwo kept her face neutral despite her growing concern. They wanted exclusive mining rights to 3 systems where humans had already built colonies. They demanded access to Earth's warp gates for their military ships. They insisted on technology transfers that would expose human defense systems. These weren't points for negotiation. They were demands designed to be rejected, creating an excuse for war. Your terms would leave Earth defenseless, Jaiwo said when Vokar finished. Surely you understand we cannot accept them. These are our minimum requirements for peace, Vokar replied. His voice remained flat, emotionless. The first day ended without progress. That evening, a formal dinner was arranged, a standard diplomatic custom. The human and Ricari delegations sat at a long table, with foods from both cultures carefully prepared to be safe for all to eat. Jaiwo watched how the Ricari interacted among themselves. She noticed their rigid hierarchy, how lower-ranked members never spoke before their superiors. She also noticed how they seemed to respect displays of strength. After the main course, Jaiwo did something that shocked her own team. She stood and addressed Vokar's second-in-command, Commander Tarek. On Earth, we have a tradition of drinking contests to build respect between potential allies, she said. Would you honor me by participating? The Ricari delegation turned to Vokar, who gave a slight nod. Tarek stood. I accept your challenge, human. The station staff quickly brought a bottle of Earth whiskey and 2 glasses. Sunwoo looked at Jaiwo with alarm. Her medical file clearly stated she had never developed a tolerance for alcohol. For an hour, Jaiwo matched Tarek drink for drink. Her head spun and her vision blurred, but she showed no weakness. Finally, after the 6th drink, Tarek raised his hand. Enough, he said. You have surprising endurance for your size. Later that night, back in the human quarters, Jaiwo was still recovering from the alcohol when her security chief, Captain Khan, entered with a serious expression. We've intercepted communications between the Ricari ships and their home fleet, he reported. They're already positioning battle groups near our outposts in the Tau Ceti system. Sunwoo's face darkened. They never intended to negotiate. Jaiwo nodded slowly. The room was still spinning slightly, but her mind was clear. No, she agreed. but now we know what they respect. She stood, moving to the star map displayed on the wall. 3 human colony systems were highlighted in blue. 7 Rakari battle groups were shown in red, already moving into attack positions. They respect strength, she continued. And they expect us to be weak. What can we do? Sunwoo asked. Our fleet can't match theirs. Jaiwoo studied the map, her mind working through possibilities. We can't match their military strength, she admitted. But humans have survived for thousands of years despite being smaller and weaker than many Earth predators. How? Captain Kong asked. Jaiwoo turned to face her team, a new determination in her eyes. By being smarter. More unpredictable. And by understanding our opponents better than they understand themselves. She pointed to the security feed showing the Rakari quarters. They think they're the hunters and we're the prey. Tomorrow, we show them they're wrong. The morning of the 3rd day, Ambassador Han Jaiwoo entered the negotiation chamber with calm determination. Her team followed behind, carrying nothing but small data pads. Across the table, the Rakari delegation waited, their postures rigid and formal. Without speaking, Jaiwoo placed a single data crystal in the center of the table. The small blue object seemed insignificant, but the effect on the Rakari was immediate. Their 4 eyes focused intently on the crystal. These are the coordinates of your attack fleets, Commander Vokar, Jaiwoo said, her voice steady. Including the 7 battle groups currently positioning themselves near Tau Ceti, New Eden, and the Proxima colonies. The chamber fell silent. The Rakari delegation stiffened, their exoskeletons reflecting the room's lights in shimmering patterns of blue and green. Several of the lower-ranked officers exchanged glances, their hands moving closer to their weapons. Vokar's expression remained unreadable to human eyes, but his silence spoke volumes. Impressive intelligence gathering, he said finally. Perhaps humans are not as primitive as we thought. Sunwoo and Captain Kong stood behind Jaiwoo, tense and ready. The situation could quickly turn violent if the Rakari felt cornered. But instead of threatening or pleading, Jaiwoo smiled. Our discussion yesterday made it clear that traditional negotiations won't work. So I propose something different. A challenge. The Rakari commander's upper eyes narrowed with interest. What kind of challenge? A game of Rakari tactical simulation, Jaiwoo answered. I understand your officers use it to develop battle strategies. One of the Rakari officers leaned toward Vokar, speaking quickly in their native language. Jaiwoo's translator caught only fragments about military secrets and sacred traditions. Vokar silenced the officer with a gesture. And what would be the stakes of this game? If I win, you withdraw your fleets and negotiate in good faith, Jaiwoo said. With reasonable terms that respect both our species' needs. And if I win? Vokar asked, his 4 eyes fixed on Jaiwoo. Then you've learned exactly how humans think, she replied. Valuable intelligence for your war. The Rakari commander considered this for several moments. Finally, he nodded. I accept your challenge, human. We will use the command simulation room. An hour later, Jaiwoo stood before a large 3-dimensional display. The simulation showed 2 fleets facing each other across a star system. Red ships represented the Rakari forces. Blue represented the humans. Vokar explained the rules quickly. The objective was to either destroy the opponent's main command ship or control 3 key points in the system. Jaiwoo had spent the morning studying the game with her team. The Rakari had provided access to basic rules but not strategy guides. This was deliberate, they wanted to observe human thinking patterns. As the simulation began, Rakari officers gathered around the display. They expected a quick victory. What followed shocked them. Jaiwoo's tactics made no sense by Rakari standards. She split her fleet into tiny groups when conventional wisdom demanded concentration of force. She sacrificed powerful ships to protect seemingly worthless positions. She retreated when advantage was hers, and attacked from angles that left her vulnerable. 3 hours into the simulation, Vokar's victory seemed certain. He had destroyed half of Jaiwa's fleet and controlled two of the three key positions. Yet his officers were no longer confident. They watched the human with new caution. "Your defeat is inevitable," Vokar stated. "Why do you continue with these unusual maneuvers?" Jaiwo didn't answer directly. Instead, she ordered a small group of ships to abandon their defensive position around her command vessel. The Rakari officers murmured in confusion. The move made no tactical sense until Jaiwa's abandoned ship suddenly appeared behind Vokar's main force, attacking from a blind spot created by a planetary shadow. The simulation ended 2 hours later. Jaiwo lost, as expected. Vokar had more ships, more experience with the simulation, and a lifetime of military training. But the final score was much closer than anyone had predicted. As the display powered down, the room remained silent. The Rakari officers were studying Jaiwo with new expressions, something close to respect. "Your species fights, strangely," Vokar observed. "We don't always fight to win the battle," Jaiwo replied. "Sometimes we fight to change the war." Vokar's four eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Jaiwo had learned indicated deep thought. "Explain," he demanded. "Humans have rarely been the strongest species, even on our own planet," Jaiwo said. "We survived by adapting, by thinking differently. By seeing possibilities our opponents missed." She pointed to the now dark display. "I knew I couldn't win today. But I could show you something important. Fighting humans will cost you more than you expect." Tarek, Vokar's second-in-command, stepped forward. "Commander, the humans' tactics were unpredictable. Our standard response protocols failed repeatedly." Vokar remained silent for several moments. Finally, he turned to Jaiwo. "You have lost the challenge," he stated. "By our agreement, we may proceed with our plans." "Yes," Jaiwo acknowledged. "But I hope you'll consider whether those plans still make sense, given what you've learned." As they left the simulation room, Sunwoo leaned close to Jaiwo. "Did we just lose our best chance to prevent war?" Jaiwo watched Vokar walking ahead, his posture different than before, less confident, more thoughtful. "No," she said quietly. "We just gave them reason to doubt. And doubt is where peace begins." The fourth day of negotiations began differently. When the Rakari entered the chamber, they found Jaiwo alone at the table. The other human delegates were absent. "Where is your team, Ambassador?" Vokar asked, his four eyes scanning the room suspiciously. "I thought we might try a different approach today," Jaiwo replied. She activated the display in the center of the table, showing a star map. "Yesterday's simulation was educational, but artificial. I propose a demonstration with real ships." The Rakari delegation exchanged glances. Tarek, Vokar's second-in-command, leaned forward. "What kind of demonstration?" "Your ships against one human defense platform," Jaiwo explained. "No actual casualties, just a simulation with real ships using reduced power weapons. All systems would record the engagements as if they were real, but no permanent damage would occur." Vokar's upper eyes narrowed. "This is unusual." "So is finding peaceful solutions between species who have never met," Jaiwo replied. "The location would be a neutral asteroid field halfway between this station and human territory. You can send 3 warships against a single human defense platform." The Rakari officers began discussing among themselves in their native language. Jaiwo caught fragments about testing human capabilities and safe intelligence gathering. Finally, Vokar turned back to her. "We accept your proposal. The demonstration will occur tomorrow at the coordinates you suggested." The next day, Jaiwo stood on the observation deck of the neutral station with Vokar and his senior officers. A large display showed the asteroid field where 3 Rakari warships approached a single human defense platform. The platform looked unimpressive, a cylindrical structure with minimal visible weapons. The Rakari ships were larger, heavily armed, and clearly superior in raw firepower. "Your defense seems inadequate," Vokar observed. Jaiwo said nothing. She merely watched the display as the Rakari vessels surrounded the human platform. The lead ship fired a warning shot, signaling the beginning of the exercise. What happened next visibly shocked the Rakari. The human platform suddenly split apart into dozens of smaller units. Each piece had its own engines and weapons. They scattered in all directions, confusing the Rakari targeting systems. "What is this?" Tarak demanded. "The platform was supposed to be a single unit." "We never claimed it was," Jaiwo replied calmly. On the display, the small human units began using the asteroid field in ways the Rakari clearly hadn't considered. Some units attached themselves to asteroids, using the rocks as shields. Others pushed smaller asteroids into the path of Rakari weapons fire. The Rakari ships tried to coordinate their attack, but the human units kept changing their patterns. When the aliens seemed to identify a strategy, the human units would suddenly shift to a completely different approach. Most surprising to the watching Rakari officers was how the human units worked together. Some deliberately sacrificed themselves to protect others. Units with different capabilities combined efforts in creative ways. What appeared to be damaged units suddenly revealed hidden weapons. One Rakari ship found itself caught in a trap when several human units herded it into a dense part of the asteroid field, then used precisely targeted shots to create a debris cloud that disabled its main engines. Another Rakari vessel was confused by sensor ghosts, fake signals created by small devices the human units had scattered throughout the field. While trying to target these ghosts, the ship was surrounded and disabled by coordinated attacks from multiple angles. After 90 minutes, the exercise ended. The single human platform, now reassembled but showing significant damage, had effectively neutralized 2 of the 3 Rakari warships. The third had escaped but was also damaged. The observation deck was silent. The Rakari officers stared at the display, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. "Your weapons are not superior," Bokar noted finally. "But your tactics are unpredictable." "Humans have always had to think creatively to survive," Jaiwo said. "What we lack in natural strength, we make up for in adaptability." Jaiwo could see divisions forming among the Rakari leadership. Some were gesturing forcefully, their body language suggesting they were reconsidering the wisdom of attacking such an unconventional enemy. Others seemed angry, perhaps insulted by the demonstration. Vokar listened to his officers debate for several minutes. Jaiwo noticed how the commander's posture had changed since their first meeting. He no longer looked down at her with dismissive confidence. When the Rakari officers finished their discussion, most left the observation deck. Only Vokar remained with Jaiwo. "Commander," she said quietly, "I believe it's time for us to speak privately." Vokar's 4 eyes studied her face. "Yes," he agreed after a long moment. "Perhaps it is." As they walked toward a secure meeting room, Jaiwo saw Sunwoo watching from across the station's main corridor. He gave her a small nod of encouragement. Everything now depended on what happened next, whether a warrior commander could see value in something beyond conquest. The secure meeting room was small and plain. No windows, no decorations. Just a table, 2 chairs, and complete privacy. Jaiwo and Vokar sat facing each other. The human ambassador looked tiny compared to the massive Rakari commander. "No recordings," Jaiwo confirmed. "No witnesses. Just honest words between us." Vokar nodded, his 4 eyes studying her with new interest. "You have surprised us, Ambassador. Few species have done that in Rakari history." Jaiwo took a deep breath. Everything depended on what she said next. Not just the success of her mission, but the lives of billions. "Your species prepares for war because you must," she said directly. "Your home system's resources are depleted after centuries of internal conflicts. You need new territories or your civilization collapses." Vokar's body went completely still. His upper eyes narrowed while the lower ones widened, a sign of shock in Rakari expressions. "How could you know this?" he asked, his voice lower than before. "Because humans faced similar crises," Jaiwo replied. "We nearly destroyed ourselves before we learned to cooperate. Our history is filled with resource wars and environmental disasters." She activated a small device on her wrist. A hologram appeared between them, showing images that told a story. First came scenes of environmental destruction on Earth, dead oceans, burning forests. Then images of wars fought over the last oil reserves, the last clean water sources. This was our past, Jaiwo said quietly. The hologram changed, showing the rebirth of Earth. Clean cities. Restored natural spaces. Then humanity's expansion to other worlds. And this is our present. Vokar watched in silence. Jaiwo changed the hologram again. Now it showed something entirely new: joint human Rakari mining operations on uninhabited planets. Shared technological development. Cultural exchanges between the species. This could be our future, she said. The hologram highlighted resource-rich systems that humans had discovered but not yet claimed or developed. War would cost both our species dearly, Jaiwo continued. But an alliance? The Rakari gain the resources you need without the losses of conflict. Humans gain security and new perspectives. Together, we become stronger than either would be alone. Vokar studied the human ambassador. His exoskeleton shifted colors slightly, from aggressive blues to more thoughtful greens. Your leaders would agree to this, he asked finally. Sharing discoveries with a species that came to your borders with weapons ready? I have the authority to make this offer, Jaiwo replied. Human history has taught us that enemies can become allies when both sides benefit. She leaned forward. The question is whether you have the courage to choose a path other than war. Courage? Vokar seemed surprised by the word. Yes, courage, Jaiwo said firmly. Any commander can order an attack. It takes a truly great leader to choose a more difficult but ultimately better path. Vokar was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. Our traditions teach that strength is measured in victories, he said slowly. But perhaps there are different kinds of victory. 3 days later, representatives from both species gathered in the Grand Hall of the Neutral Station. A treaty was signed, not a surrender, not a temporary truce, but a genuine alliance. The terms outlined resource sharing, technological cooperation, and mutual defense. Many of the Rakari officers seemed uncomfortable with this unexpected outcome. Some refused to attend the ceremony. But Vokar stood tall beside Jaiwo as they activated the document together. As the Harmony prepared to return to Earth, Sunwoo joined Jaiwo on the observation deck. Through the large windows, they could see something unprecedented: a formation of Rakari warships escorting the human vessel. An honor guard, Sunwoo said in wonder. Their highest military honor. Jaiwo nodded. Commander Vokar is sending a message to everyone watching, both human and Rakari. How did you know it would work? Sunwoo asked. When everyone expected war, how did you see another possibility? Jaiwo watched the Rakari ships, their crystalline structures catching the light of distant stars. Just days ago, those same ships had threatened human worlds. Now they protected a human vessel. Because sometimes, she said, the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy. It's turning them into friends. As the Harmony prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, Jaiwo thought about the challenges ahead. The alliance would face opposition from both species. Many would prefer the simplicity of conflict over the complexity of cooperation. But today, in this moment, humans and Rakari had chosen a different path. And that, Jaiwo knew, was a victory worth celebrating.